Picture this, a desolate stretch of beach where the Atlantic Ocean meets Long Island's south shore. The wind carries the scent of salt and decay. Beneath the tangled brush and forgotten dunes lie secrets that would haunt investigators for over a decade. This is Gilgo Beach, a place where dreams came to die and where one man's twisted desires would claim at least 11 lives. If you're fascinated by chilling unsolved mysteries and true crime, subscribe to DarkFiles so you never miss the stories that keep you up at night. Tonight, we dive into one of America's most elusive serial killer cases, a story of digital breadcrumbs, midnight hunts, and a predator who thought he was untouchable. It was May 1st, 2010, when 24-year-old Shannan Gilbert made what would become her final phone call. A sex worker from New Jersey, Shannan had driven out to Oak Beach, Long Island, for what seemed like a routine appointment. But sometime around dawn, neighbors heard terrified screaming echoing across the marshland. "There's somebody after me," Shannan cried into her phone during a frantic 23-minute call to 911. "There's somebody after me." Then silence. When Shannan's family reported her missing, police initially showed little urgency. Sex workers, they reasoned, often disappeared for days or weeks. But her mother, Mari Gilbert, refused to let her daughter become another forgotten statistic. She pressed investigators, demanding they search the remote barrier island where Shannan had last been seen. What they would discover there would reveal something far more sinister than one woman's disappearance. On December 11, 2010, more than 7 months after Shannan vanished, Suffolk County Police Officer John Malia was walking his German Shepherd along Ocean Parkway, searching for any trace of the missing woman. The dog suddenly stopped, nose twitching at something hidden in the thick undergrowth. What Officer Malia found wasn't Shannan Gilbert. It was a human skull, weathered and partially buried in the sandy soil. Within days, 3 more bodies were discovered along the same desolate stretch of highway, each wrapped in burlap and camouflaged canvas, each positioned exactly a quarter-mile apart. The precision was chilling. This wasn't random violence. This was the work of someone methodical, someone who had done this before. The victims were identified as Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Melissa Barthélemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Lynn Costello, all young women, all sex workers, all advertising their services on Craigslist. But what investigators found next would change everything. The killer hadn't just murdered these women, he had tormented their families. Phone records revealed that someone had been calling Melissa Barthélemy's younger sister, taunting her with graphic details about Melissa's death. "Do you know what I did to your sister?" the caller would whisper before hanging up. The calls were traced to crowded areas of Manhattan, Times Square, Madison Square Garden, places where the caller could blend into thousands of people and disappear. As winter gave way to spring in 2011, the search expanded. On March 29th, investigators discovered an infant's remains, along with additional human bones scattered throughout the area. Then, on April 4th, they found 3 more victims deeper in the marsh, an unidentified woman who would become known as Jane Doe No. 6, an unidentified man, and another woman. The total count now stood at 10 sets of remains, possibly 11, a dumping ground that spanned both sides of Ocean Parkway. The killer's hunting ground painted a disturbing picture. This wasn't someone who struck randomly in moments of rage. This was a predator who used the internet as his web, targeting vulnerable women who advertised online. He would contact them through email or phone, arrange meetings, then drive them to this remote stretch of coastline where their screams would be swallowed by the wind and waves. Dr. Charles Hirsch, New York City's former chief medical examiner, studied the positioning of the bodies and concluded they were dealing with someone highly organized. The spacing, the method of concealment, the choice of location, this indicates someone who planned extensively and wanted the bodies to be found eventually, he noted. The killer was sending a message, marking his territory like an animal. For years, the investigation seemed to stall. Suspects emerged and faded. Police Commissioner James Burke, who had taken control of the case, refused FBI assistance, claiming local authorities could handle it alone. Behind the scenes, Burke himself would later be convicted of conspiracy and civil rights violations in an unrelated case, raising questions about whether his personal scandals had compromised the investigation. Then, in 2022, the digital age finally caught up with the Long Island serial killer. Advances in DNA technology and cell phone data analysis led investigators to focus on one man, Rex Heuermann, a 59-year-old architect from Massapequa Park, living just miles from where the bodies were found. The evidence against Heuermann was damning. Cell phone records showed his devices pinging towers near Gilgo Beach around the times of the murders. His internet search history revealed disturbing patterns, violent pornography, torture techniques, and searches for information about the victims and the investigation. Most chillingly, investigators found that he had been using fake email accounts to contact sex workers, often using variations of his own name, Rex H, RH, initials that now seemed like a killer's signature. On July 13, 2023, Rex Heuermann was arrested outside his Manhattan office building. The man who had hidden in plain sight for over a decade was finally in custody. As police led him away in handcuffs, neighbors described him as quiet, unremarkable, the kind of man who could disappear into a crowd. His wife and children, authorities say, were likely unaware of his double life. But even with Heuermann's arrest, questions linger in the salt air of Gilgo Beach. He has been charged with 3 of the murders and named as the prime suspect in a 4th, but investigators believe he may be responsible for additional victims found in the area. The investigation continues, with authorities examining cold cases across Long Island and beyond, wondering how many more secrets this suburban family man might have buried. And what of Shannan Gilbert, the young woman whose disappearance led to this horrific discovery? Her remains were found in December 2011 in a marsh near Oak Beach. The official ruling was accidental drowning, possibly while fleeing in a drug-induced paranoia. But her family maintains that she too was murdered, that her death is connected to the others. Her 23-minute 911 call remains sealed, its contents known only to investigators. Standing today on that windswept stretch of Ocean Parkway, you can still feel the weight of what happened here. The victims, Maureen, Melissa, Megan, Amber, and the others, were more than statistics. They were daughters, sisters, mothers, each with dreams that were cut short by someone who saw them as disposable. Their families waited over a decade for answers, for justice, for the simple acknowledgement that their loved ones mattered. The Long Island serial killer case reminds us that monsters don't always lurk in dark alleys or abandoned buildings. Sometimes they live in suburban houses, drive family sedans, and attend community barbecues. Sometimes evil wears the most ordinary face, hiding behind routine and respectability while planning acts of unthinkable cruelty. As Rex Heuermann awaits trial, as investigators continue to dig through evidence and examine other unsolved cases, the families of the Gilgo Beach victims finally have something they've waited years for: hope. Hope that justice will be served, that the full truth will emerge, and that no other families will endure the agony of not knowing what happened to someone they loved. The tide continues to wash against the shores of Gilgo Beach, carrying away footprints, but never memories. In the whisper of the wind through the marsh grass, you can almost hear the voices of the victims, demanding that their stories be told, their lives remembered, their killer held accountable for every moment of terror he inflicted. What do you think really happened during those final moments? How many more victims might there be? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you want more stories that expose the darkness hiding in plain sight, subscribe to DarkFiles True Crime Mysteries. Until next time, stay safe, and remember that sometimes the most dangerous predators are the ones you'd never suspect.